Ooh, I got a thumbs up. Whoa, does that mean I'm supposed to start? Probably. Hooray! Hello, I'm John David Berdahl. It is about 8:01 a.m. here in Moorhead, Minnesota, and I'm going to be presenting about today embracing neurodiversity. Here we go. I'm just bringing up some notes here. There we go. Great. Unlocking intrinsic motivation and potential. A little bit about me. I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome when I was 30 years old, and I am 41 right now. I reside in Moorhead, Minnesota, in the American Midwest. And so for a long time, I tell people, living in a parallel dimension, living in an alternate reality. I didn't understand the sensory input. I didn't understand the system I was living in. And now I do, thanks to the diagnosis that I did receive. Now I do present about autism spectrum disorder. I am an art educator, life skills educator, and mental wellness presenter. Here in Fargo, Moorhead, we're just across the river from Fargo, North Dakota. If anyone has seen the movie or watched the TV series, yes, I live close to Fargo. Woo! Okay, and so today I'm supposed to be talking about neurodiversity, neurodivergence, neurocomplexity, and intrinsic motivation, okay, and how all of that can come together to support a neurocomplex, neurodivergent, neurodiverse. Well, we're all neurodiverse, okay? I suppose I'm just getting into it right now. I did have a slideshow, and that's going to be in the comments for this presentation or for this event, this post on Facebook. I'll post a video that I had made of the slideshow so people can watch it, and get, I guess, a whole bunch, really get what I had put in there, fully. Yeah, and so thank you for joining me today. And hopefully some individuals or most individuals who are participating or watching or viewing or something like that do have questions, right, about creating supportive environments for individuals with neurodiverse or neurodivergent, perhaps, profiles. So I'm going to start with saying that, what is the difference between neurodiverse, neurodivergent, and neurocomplex? Okay, every human being is neurodiverse, okay? Neurodiversity is brain difference, all right? So every person is brain different, all right? But not every individual is neurodivergent, okay? Where they diverge from neurotypical types of processing, all right? And then within neurodivergence, you've got neurocomplexity, when you've got co-occurring conditions. And I thought about putting together, I could doodle something, doodle like a sort of diagram or something like that. But basically, neurocomplexity is in neurodivergence, which is in neurodiversity, okay? And again, I'm John David Berdahl, and I did share a little bit about the personal experience that I do have with Asperger's syndrome. And it really does inform the sort of passion and commitment I've got to making certain that individuals are accepted, are understood, are included, and that individuals can integrate so many of these neurodivergent, neuroatypical, autism, ADHD, OCD, ODD, Tourette's, dyslexia, dyscalculia, schizophrenia, all of these conditions have their own traits, their own attributes, okay? And I make certain that individuals can integrate all of that into their lives. I tell people, don't fit in, fill out, okay? You'll hear me say that during these presentations. Don't fit in, fill out, okay? And the goal of this presentation is to create a supportive environment, again, for individuals with neurodiverse profiles, okay? And also neurodiversity, as I had said, it's not just autism we're talking about with neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and neurocomplexity, okay? And so the term neurodiversity was coined, there we go, by Judy Singer in 1998. Okay, so a lot of this is really new, really, really new, and really still pretty fresh. And I actually was talking with one professional who had said, well, everyone's a little autistic, or everyone's a little ADHD, or everyone's a little OCD, or something like that. I just have to disagree, because if everyone was a little bit, that there would be a better understanding of it. I do tell people, we all have a condition, the human condition, okay? And some of us are more human than others. Oh, goodness. So key aspects of neurodiversity include inclusivity, strength-based approach, and advocacy, okay? Individuals, definitely, when they need support, that's what we're supposed to be providing. And it takes a while to find out what type of support they need. I was just at a college And I was asked how much support is too much support. And I had answered when the individual, I guess when the student, when the client, when the patient, when the person has an unfair advantage over others, when they don't have to work as hard as others because of the support you're providing, or at least that they're not challenged in some way, that's way too much support that you're providing potentially. Neurodiversity is not just about disabilities, it's also about abilities and strengths, okay? All right, we have differences, not deficits. Remember that, differences, not deficits. Okay, yeah, we do have limitations, but we can overcome a lot of those limitations if we really do work at it, especially together. Embracing neurodiversity can lead to a more inclusive and accepting society, which is definitely something that I'm working towards. And I'm not talking about just condoning any type of behavior or agreeing with any sort of topic or subject, whether or not you understand it or know anything about it. That's not really how I define inclusion, or how perhaps we ought to. We ought to really think of it as at least you're allowed in the room so you can have the conversation. And if there's an agreement or disagreement, combating so much discrimination, which I have experienced myself. Importance of neurodiversity. The concept of neurodiversity challenges traditional deficit models of understanding human differences. Okay, not deficits, we have differences. Okay, it's diversity, it's being diverse. And so it's brain difference, not brain deficit. Okay, do think about that, or do keep that in mind. And again, so neurocomplexity, all right, and that's again within neurodivergence. So neurocomplexity, you've got co-occurring sort of conditions. So for me, I don't have any co-occurring conditions. For me, I was just diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, technically Asperger's syndrome, but now that's been folded into ASD. I don't have ADHD. I don't have an ADHD diagnosis as well. I don't have an ADD diagnosis as well. I don't have depression. I don't have anxiety. I don't have, I guess, take your pick of out of the DSM-5. I don't have any other condition besides autism spectrum disorder. So I'm not really as neurocomplex, right? Or neurospicy. I've heard that, like, what's your flavor of neurodivergence or neurodiversity? So again, neurocomplexity is within neurodivergence, and that's where you diverge from from neurotypical types of processing and thinking. And then neurodivergence is within neurodiversity, because everyone is different. Neurodiversity values all forms of neurological functioning, moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach. Okay, and I was just talking to someone yesterday about who's heard this, right? There we go. A square peg in a round hole. You're a square peg in a round hole. I tell people there is no peg, there is no hole. Do not subscribe to that type of thinking. Okay, just do whatever it is you think you're supposed to do. Within reason, without doing harm, without causing too much trouble or something like that. Making things too difficult for yourself. Perhaps neurodiversity is essential for creating a more inclusive and diverse society. Absolutely. And understanding diversity can help reduce stigma and promote acceptance. And concerning acceptance, something I ought to talk about is acceptance doesn't mean that you actually have to like the person that you're dealing with or like the sort of situation, right, or event that is transpiring or that is occurring. Okay, like and preference are two different things, like desiring, liking, or preferring something or someone is very different from accepting. I mean, it's neat that can happen, but to me, it's just, again, that sanctioning something, permitting something, allowing something, right? Consenting to something. When you allow an individual to access, definitely, concerning that, there's so much that goes into acceptance, and I'm not talking about, some people think acceptance means love too. It's just more, again, welcoming, inviting, including the person. To me, that's acceptance. You are permitted. You are allowed to be in this space. You are allowed to be a part of this conversation, but not everyone is going to agree. And that's what leads to some difficulties. And as I presented last time about rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria, some individuals, they have acceptance to them means unconditional love. And it's really not, they're not the same thing. You can accept someone, I can accept someone's behavior, but I don't love it or I don't like it. I just know that it's going to occur and that, I don't know, I can't anticipate it too. And so that's huge. I talk to so many clients about that because they think they have to love someone or like someone, or agree with someone to accept them. And it's like, no, you really don't. You accept, I mean, you agree that they're a human being and that they have different values and a different perspective than you do. But there are definitely some jerks, but I accept them. There's some ADHD jerks or meanies or, really crude or crass individuals, but I trust them. Like, I more than tolerate, I accept them. I don't know if I prefer them. That's another conversation. So exploring neurocomplexity, okay? Neurocomplexity, a little more specifically, refers to the intricate interplay of various neurological profiles and their unique contributions. Okay, neurocomplexity acknowledges that neurological differences are interconnected and interdependent. Okay, embracing neurocomplexity can lead to a deeper understanding of human differences and strengths. Neurocomplexity is essential for creating that inclusive and supportive environment, right? And so, yeah, understanding or knowing, right, that individuals are it's not just going to be cut and dry. It's not just going to be simple. It's not just going to be black and white with a number of people. And I'm not talking about like types of thinking perhaps. And it's like, yeah, being autistic myself, I am very literal. I don't know how black and white I am because I'm incredibly flexible. I'm an atypical. And that's why it took so long for me to get diagnosed with autism. And I talk about the symptoms that I've got, the characteristics, traits that I've got manifest in a very specific kind of Goldilocks zone way where I can actually be really successful. And I'm not really, I suppose, as I said, limited or impeded, or set back by really any of the traits that I have. I don't know how to feel nervous. I don't know how to feel scared. I don't know how to feel anxious, and I don't know how to really seek out, to need to stim a whole bunch, but I will do it anyway. Like, it's still there, but it's like there's no need for it for me. I don't really need to self-soothe that often. And I guess that's how I'm sort of neurocomplex. Or that's my own neurocomplexity, is that I'm an atypical. And so I present as sort of typical, or I pass as neurotypical that way. And so let's move on to, because I've only got so much time, I think I'm doing pretty well. Intrinsic motivation. Okay, well, are there any questions? I know I'm going to have a Q&A sort of portion, but are there any questions at all? No, probably not. There probably would have been something already. But yeah, and if you need to ask me any questions, or if you need to reach out, or if you need to check in with me at all, the email address that I've got is johndavidberdahl@gmail.com. I can put some contact information in the comments too, and individuals can continue the discussion that way. So intrinsic motivation, right, refers to engaging in activities or for inherent satisfaction and enjoyment. Okay, key characteristics of intrinsic motivation include autonomy, purpose, and mastery. And of course, when you run into individuals with autism spectrum disorder or who identify as autistic, okay, they're going to have that sort of special interest. I mean, that's just across the board with neurodivergent and neurocomplex individuals. They're going to have that special interest or that hyper focus. It gets talked about, And so autistic kids, especially, will be little professors. That comes up, just knowing everything about something, every single thing about something, the ins and outs of it, how it's applied, how it's discussed, and so all the specifics concerning mastery. And that's really definitely a way that individuals learn how to communicate on the spectrum, and learn how to really conduct themselves throughout the course of a given situation or a given series of events or sequence of events. Not to say that they're totally just scripting that way by learning about something, but that's definitely a part of it. And mirroring too, that goes in there, mirroring perhaps some of the information or some of the demonstrations or examples that they've read about. Intrinsic motivation is essential for personal growth and development. Intrinsic motivation can lead to greater job satisfaction and engagement, and understanding intrinsic motivations can help individuals find more fulfillment in their personal and professional lives. Because a number of individuals, and I had it in the slide too, and I suppose you'll check it out in a bit, but so like, what's the difference between external or probably extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation? And so individuals who are motivated by externals, behave very differently, not like totally differently, not wildly differently, but differently than individuals who are motivated by or who conduct themselves or who do accomplish tasks with or via like intrinsic motivation, and definitely experience intrinsic motivation more. They're definitely satisfied by what it is that they think is important, what they think is crucial, what they think is vital. And I'm definitely that way myself. And I suppose we come off as maybe selfish, being intrinsically motivated and whatnot, but I'm not really jazzed or excited or gleeful or something like that. I'm not really, what is it? Enthused. There we go. I'm not really enthused by how something tastes. I'm not really, elated, by how something looks. It's basically how it fits in with what it is that I do understand and how it is that I do understand something. I'm very task oriented, and so intrinsic motivation that way is, or how it manifests in me definitely is, okay, whatever I'm encountering, whatever I'm dealing with, does it allow me to accomplish the task that I'm supposed to be accomplishing? And so definitely, I guess I have that initiative or drive to really pursue what it is that is kind of right in front of me or on my own horizon, or what it is that I've read about, what it is that I've learned about, not just what somebody else is talking about or telling me that I ought to know about. I don't really experience too much demand avoidance that way, so there's not going to be a lot of pushback with me unless I know it does harm. I'm very conscientious and dutiful that way. Or in that regard, if I find out that something is sort of dangerous or harm, just not necessary, and even, not criminal, unlawful or criminal, I just don't even acknowledge it. I don't think about it. I don't do it. I just don't do it. And so that's really kind of intrinsic motivation for me. More examples of intrinsic motivation. Hobbies such as painting or playing a musical instrument are examples of intrinsic motivation, which I do myself, being an art instructor and a musician. Studying a subject out of genuine interest is an example of intrinsic motivation, and not just being told to do it. Engaging in physical activities such as running or playing sports for enjoyment is an example of intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation can lead to a sense of purpose and meaning, definitely. When you follow what it is that you think you're supposed to be doing. I mean, and I think that's how definitely I uncovered or discovered or fostered a better sense of self, because I don't really have that. I don't really have a me. I know there is a me, but I don't really experience it intrinsically, and that's alexithymia, or emotional blindness. Okay. And so with intrinsic motivation, following definitely the hobbies and the types of studies, and the activities that it is that I do believe, or at least that this brain thinks I'm supposed to be doing, definitely allows me and definitely affords me a better sense, a more concrete sense of this, or maybe him. Hopefully there's a me after a while, but I don't know if I'll ever really experience that. It's not like I'm trying not to. It just doesn't occur with me. So some theoretical backgrounds, like flow, describes a deep state of engagement and enjoyment in an activity. And I tell people that, like, the concept of flow or being flowful. And individuals, like especially with autism, that I've noticed, autism and ADHD, oh my gosh, are we really associative and connective or flowful, and we can just go from, as I'm doing, as you can witness in this presentation, I can go from topic to topic to topic to idea to idea to idea. I see all of those connections. I make those connections. I see those connections, right? And I follow those connections, especially while I'm talking. And that's what's really allowed me to be a great educator. Those types of what they call instincts. Okay. And intrinsic motivation is essential for achieving a state of flow. Okay. And theoretical backgrounds of intrinsic motivation include self-determination theory and cognitive evaluation theory. Understanding the theoretical background of intrinsic motivation can help individuals and organizations, right, promote greater motivation and greater success. Okay. Once you realize that people are going to behave this way, are behaving this way. Instead of perhaps, I don't know, curtailing it or stopping it or limiting it, what I tell students, what I tell parents, what I tell clients is once you know more about yourself, you can definitely aim, right? You can aim how it is that you're going to, like these traits that you've got or symptoms, you can aim these symptoms so that you find or that you land definitely in careers or in roles or in positions in organizations or businesses, where it is that you're just going to thrive, where you're just going to flourish, and so that's definitely, I found like an area arena for me, or a sort of stage in this way where it's like I can just talk about these subjects first because I live them, and second, I know a lot about them, and hopefully I can benefit so many individuals or benefit the lives of so many individuals. Now, to be honest, though, there are challenges to intrinsic motivation. Okay, external pressures and expectations can undermine intrinsic motivation. People definitely trying to make certain that you are that type of peg, trying to fit, or that you're supposed to fit in that type of hole. Okay, that I was talking about, square peg, round hole. They're trying to make you a round peg, so you fit in the round hole, and they're going to try and change how it is, perhaps, or, maybe, yes, definitely pressure or enforce, hopefully not coerce, but push quite a bit of what they think is necessary or, essential, definitely essential. I just said that, they're going to make certain that you, I guess we're getting into sort of, not hopefully indoctrination or something like that, but that you are, meeting the needs of, or some requirements of some sort of objective, if it's in the workplace or whatnot. And now that needs to happen to a degree, all right? That's work. You don't just get to do whatever it is that you want to do, whenever it is that you want to do it, and then you get paid. Although that's great if you can find that, ultimately, or something like that. Or it's a fantasy. Often the reality is, that you have to provide a service or that you have to serve others. And so while you're working with others to serve others, those other individuals, may start to push, or nudge, okay, or make certain that you are doing what they think, is the most essential, a job or task or, so to accomplish whatever it is that needs to be accomplished is definitely in the way that they think it's supposed to be accomplished. They're going to definitely push, or make certain that you do follow, their own paradigms, their own patterns, their own plans, and their own ideas. And I've run into that myself, definitely. And so what I do is I push back, and that's just independence, that's autonomy, that's agency. I don't slap people, I don't hurt people, but, I make certain that they understand I'm an individual and I do what I do believe is best, in any given situation, but I will consider, what it is that you talked about. And some people become irate, or they intimidate too, they intimidate to make certain that you are following along, or, meeting their expectation, or ending up at the destination or the outcome that they think ought to be visited. Okay, so lack of autonomy and choice can hinder intrinsic motivation, definitely. Misalignment between interests and opportunities can challenge intrinsic motivation. Understanding the challenges to intrinsic motivation can help individuals and organizations overcome them, okay? Knowledge is power, absolutely. Addressing challenges to intrinsic motivation can lead to greater job satisfaction and engagement. Now, how do we encourage intrinsic motivation, right? Strategies for promoting intrinsic motivation include creating environments that promote autonomy, okay? Fostering a sense of purpose in activities can encourage intrinsic motivation. Encouraging mastery through skill development and positive feedback can promote intrinsic motivation, okay? And so what is feedback? Opinion is a visceral, emotional response to something. Feedback is data that allows you to accomplish a task or achieve a goal, okay? And so keep that in mind when you're working with individuals with autism. Feedback, who are neurodivergent and neurocomplex, absolutely. Feedback or input is going to help out so much more than opinions. Concrete language versus abstract language or thoughts, and feelings. Keep that in mind, okay? Inclusive practices such as understanding individual needs and strengths can create supportive environments. Providing opportunities for self-directed learning and exploration can foster intrinsic motivation. Absolutely. Celebrating neurodiversity in educational and workplace settings can promote greater acceptance of inclusion. And that doesn't mean that people get to get away with murder just because they have autism or ADHD or identify as autistic, or ADHD. It just means that, hey, that is you. That is the type of person you are. Hooray. Thank you so much. And allowing people to, live that purpose, celebrate that purpose, live that purpose, is huge. It's just huge. Okay. We got about 5 minutes left. And so getting to the conclusion here, embracing neurodiversity can unlock potential and foster intrinsic motivation. Creating supportive environments is essential for individuals with neurodivergent, neurocomplex profiles. Okay, I'm going to read that one again. I'm going to say that one. Creating supportive environments is essential for individuals with neurodivergent, and neurocomplex profiles. Okay, and so what is support though? And that's a case-by-case sort of universal types of support. Okay, it's like active listening, is a type of support, making certain that individuals, as I had said, concrete language is helpful, making certain that individuals have spaces where they can perhaps self-soothe or allow themselves to so they can be removed from certain types of stimuli and certain types of just activities, making certain that individuals are seen, are heard, are acknowledged, are respected. Definitely the only R word that we ought to be thinking of and talking about is respect, right? So that's huge. And by embracing neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and neurocomplexity, and nurturing intrinsic motivation, right, or that self-motivation, internal motivation, we can create a more compassionate and inclusive society. And this presentation is aimed to provide insights into the importance of neurodiversity, neurodivergence, neurocomplexity, and intrinsic motivation. So here's the Q&A session right now. And so I've got personal experience with neurodiversity, neurodivergence, neurocomplexity, and I do make certain that I am passionate and focused and dedicated and determined. And so many other, positive, right, and really empowering types of words and ideas and concepts myself, to make certain that others, I show that so that people know how to be that, okay? And so are there any questions at all? I know I've gone pretty quick, or hopefully not too fast. And again, I'm going to be putting the presentation in the comments for this event. I'm not seeing too many questions. And so to thank, everyone and anyone who has, participated in this. Contact information I'll be putting in the comments so you can reach out to me. I'm on social media. You can email, whatnot, for further engagement. And you can support the work that I do on Patreon. Definitely, I could put that link. And I'm working on a documentary film right now called I'll Start From Here. I put on an event in Fargo-Moorhead called Anything But Typical, where we celebrate being neuroatypical. Okay, and that's basically just we talk about the hobbies and the activities, right? And our careers, with those of us who are neurodivergent, neurocomplex, neurospicy, neuroatypical, who are, a bit more, and exceptional, definitely. And hopefully this presentation has provided a somewhat comprehensive overview of some of the topics, allowing attendees, there we go, no questions. Thank you very much. Attendees, that I did such a good job, right? There's no questions whatsoever. Everyone just understood everything, right? Oh gosh, that's great. And closing remarks, right? Here, let me grab this. Definitely. So let me say, a sincere, heartfelt, hopefully, thank you for this opportunity, definitely to speak to everyone or to speak to, what it's like to live that sort of different lifestyle or live that sort of, there we go, perspective, that sort of outlook, and to be that type of outlier in situations where it is that we do learn differently, do understand differently, do process differently. Today, we've explored the significant impact of neurodiversity, neurodivergence, and neurocomplexity on individual potential and collaboration. All right. By recognizing and valuing diverse perspectives, we create environments where everyone can thrive. This conversation is crucial for fostering understanding and acceptance, shaping a more inclusive society. As we move forward, let's continue to share insights, right, experiences, and engaging in dialogue about neurodiversity will further our collective journey towards awareness and respect. There's that word again, right? Respect, helping us build a better future for all. So thank you so much. I do hope that you can have a great time of day or night, wherever it is that you are and whoever it is that does see this now and in the future. And that's about it. And so if there are no questions, I will let you go or I will depart. Thank you so very, very much for this opportunity once again. And hopefully I can present very, very soon. Once again, in the future, I've got a couple more topics that I can't talk about, which would be very nice. Hi. Someone's waving at me. Hi, I'm presenting right now.
I was just checking. I'm like, oh, don't tell me these students are here. You know?
Okay, well, I better get back to things here. It sounds like everything's going on. So.
All right, you're cool.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Oh, I'm cool. See ya. Bye-bye.